good, YouTube? I've recently had a lot of people ask me, hey, I want to get to 185 pounds, I want to get to 200 pounds, and it's typically, obviously, guys normally asking those questions. Something I want to point out is that you shouldn't really be focused on a set goal weight, and more so maybe your physique and then what it looks like in the mirror. And so, as you can tell from the title of this video, how fast can you naturally build muscle? I'm going to talk a little bit about putting on, obviously, the muscle that you want, but not putting on excess fat. And so that's why I say to look at what's in the mirror, not just looking at what's on the scale. So recently I had a friend who was, I think, about 180 pounds, and he said I could talk about this. Obviously won't end up using his name, but he wanted to reach the big 200. The big 200 pounds, of course. You want to feel like a big guy, you want to feel confident, all of that good stuff. They said they had a goal of going from 180 pounds to 200 pounds within 6 months. That's roughly 3.3 pounds per month and a 1.85% body weight gain per month. So I just want to go over real quick before I go into a study, depending on the levels of training that you're in, how much body weight you should focus on gaining each and every single month. So if you're a beginner, then you typically should focus on gaining anywhere between 1 and 1.5% of your body weight each month. If you're an intermediate lifter, which I consider myself kind of right in between beginner and intermediate, and I've been lifting for roughly 8 years now, you should focus on 0.5% and 1% of your body weight each month. And for advanced lifters, which would be like top of the line pro bodybuilders, to focus on no more than 0.5% of their body weight each month. Typically, if you're a beginner, you'll be able to see result pictures on a week-to-week basis, intermediate maybe on a month-to-month basis, advanced lifters on a every few months basis, every 3 to 6 months. I want to point back to a recent 2013 study in which Garth and colleagues found in a 12-week study that there was no difference in muscle and strength gains in the two different groups in which they had people in a small surplus above their maintenance and a 600 calorie surplus above their maintenance. But for the group that had over 600 calories above their maintenance had over 1/5 excess body fat gain. So pretty much what this is saying is if you have a maintenance level of 3,000 calories and you eat 3,600 versus 3,300 in order to gain weight, you're not gonna have any different gains in muscle size or muscle strength over a 12-week period, relatively speaking. So my final thoughts on this, gaining muscle takes forever. Cutting fat is the easy thing. That's just putting yourself in a deficit. Gaining muscle, gaining new muscle that you haven't already had takes a long time, and it's a process. Like myself, I've only been lifting for 8 years and thus have only come this far. Another tip is not to go on a bulk cut, or cut, bulk cycle, because it just becomes this vicious cycle that doesn't lead to great results. You should ideally spend more time bulking and occasionally doing mini cuts to moderate your fat gain and focus on gaining lean muscle as much as you possibly can. For example, the last time that I cut was in July of 2013 when I did my first show. Since then, I have not done a single cut. I've done maybe one mini cut in March of this year when I was 190 pounds. I cut down to 180 or 178 before the show that I just did. I've spent a little over 3 years actually bulking and lean gaining, trying to gain as much muscle as I possibly can. So it's a long process. Now, of course, you will see those people that gain muscle a lot faster than other people. But typically when that happens, those people have a harder time cutting fat and retaining that muscle. So for myself, it's very easy for me to cut fat, but it's very hard for me to build muscle. So genetics is something that plays a huge role in this dispute, as you could say, I guess. So in summation of this whole video, what I'm trying to say is spend as much time as you can trying to build muscle. Don't go on a cut, bulk kind of vicious cycle that ideally leads to you not seeing as many gains as you possibly can over X period of time. Enjoy the process and don't eat excessively. Just because you gain more weight and see 200 pounds on the scale or seeing that big number on the scale doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have the muscle when you actually end up cutting down. When you do go into a fat loss phase after hitting that big 200, let's for say, you're gonna spend a lot of time actually cutting fat before you actually chisel down to the real muscle and physique that you're trying to show off that you built up. I hope this helps out some of you guys, especially high schoolers and people like that typically end up coming to me wanting to do a cut before they bulk, and kind of gives you the idea that you should spend as much time as you possibly can gaining muscle and then doing a cut when you have a good base to cut down to. I'm out.
Here we go.